Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Matt Wilson alongside Jacob Hedges and Cody Hammonds. Today on deck we'll be discussing our picks for the Cy Young Award, and we'll also be talking about the prospects of the NFL Draft. It's all being discussed right here on the Game. With all the recent footage that has come up on social media with prospects like Zach Wilson and Justin Fields showcasing their skills, who do you guys think is the best prospect in this draft?
Well, it'd be stupid not to mention Trevor Lawrence and where he's going to go. We all know that Urban Meyer's pretty much going to select him first round with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But with Zach Wilson's videos, now there's talks of the Jets going after Zach Wilson. So you got to think there's so many quarterbacks that could be taken this first round. If the San Francisco 49ers, the Jets, and the Jacksonville Jaguars select quarterbacks, it'd be the first time in years that something like that's happened. And then if the Falcons trade up, or if they're already there, if they select a quarterback too, then that'd be the first time in history that the first 4 picks have been quarterbacks. So I think this year in the draft, we see a rise in quarterbacks, but the question is, are the teams going to select those quarterbacks in those first rounds?
Yeah. I think a big thing coming into it, based on what Jacob said, there's a lot of talk about quarterbacks because of the field day that Justin Fields had and Zach Wilson. And I think that's all well, but you really can't forget about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he is an absolute phenomenon with the ball. He's insanely good. He could go anywhere he wants. I predict that he'll go first in the draft. And then I think that actually Zach Wilson will fall to third because I think personally the second pick will be Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. He had a tremendous field day. He wasn't quite as outspoken on social media as some of the posts that we saw from Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. But, he's solid on the wing. He's a good guy. He's extremely large. And overall, I think he should be number 2, with the first one being a QB in Trevor Lawrence, and the third one being a QB again in Zach Wilson, with Justin Fields falling possibly down to 7th or 8th or something like that, but still being top 10.
Well, for me, I think it's evident that number 1 is going to be Trevor Lawrence at this point. I mean, Urban Meyer's pretty much already locked him up as the number 1 guy, but going on about the number 3 pick with the San Francisco 49ers, I mean, they're in a very good position to get their next guy at quarterback, because, obviously Garoppolo is not cutting it anymore. So for me, Zach Wilson looked amazing. That one dime that he had, that everybody was going off on social media about, it was a great pass.
Yes, it was.
But I think it would be an absolute travesty if the 49ers didn't take Justin Fields. And I'm not saying that just because, I'm a huge Ohio State fan. I'm saying that because if you look at the tail of the tape between him and Zach Wilson, Justin Fields was doing everything that Zach Wilson was doing in the Big Ten. And not only that, but he runs a 4.44 in the 40-yard dash, which is absolutely unheard of by a quarterback, to have that kind of wheels and to be able to have that kind of arm talent, to rival Zach Wilson, who is a good quarterback, don't get me wrong. He's going to go in the top 10 for sure. But Justin Fields deserves to have that second or that third spot with the 49ers because, in my opinion, he even rivals Trevor Lawrence in that aspect because if you look at the semifinal game between the two, I mean, he was absolutely cutting up that Clemson defense. And not a lot of people can do that, So in terms of that, I feel like Justin Fields has a lot of the upper hand on Zach Wilson just because of the talent that he played against while, at Ohio State. So, if it was me personally, I would go with Justin Fields over Zach Wilson. But, it's the 49ers pick, and they're going to do whatever they want to do.
Wherever Justin Fields ends up, do you think he has the potential to rival some of the more running-oriented quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and the Cardinals? I can't think of his
Kyler
name.
Murray.
Kyler Murray, thank you.
I think he's not going to be that big of a factor in the running game. Like, don't get me wrong, he has enough playmaking ability to where he can get out of the pocket if necessary. But I don't think he's going to rely on his feet as much as Lamar Jackson would or Kyler Murray just because he has the arm talent to make the throws that everybody needs to make in the NFL. don't get me wrong, like he's still very good and he runs a 4.4. So obviously you're going to want to use that if you're Justin Fields. But at the end of the day, all of his talent is based around his arm and how well he throws in windows and stuff. So I think that he'll be a good running quarterback, but he doesn't have to rely on his legs per se. So I think he's still a good pick at number 3.
The Morehead State volleyball team has had very good success with only losing one game during the regular season. Let's find out more on how they have dominated everyone in the OVC. Morehead State volleyball had one of their best seasons in the Jamie Gordon era, finishing 17-2 overall and 8-2 in the regular season. Morehead State finished off the regular season with an OVC championship win over Jacksonville State, a team they had previously split a series with in the regular season. They swept them in the final game of the season 3-0. The season was carried on the shoulders of senior outside hitter Olivia Lohmeyer, who ended up gaining a share of the OVC Player of the Year award, finishing the year with 255 kills and 294.5 points overall. They also achieved an NCAA tournament berth where they beat Creighton in a 5-set thriller, but ended up losing to the 8-seed Florida Gators in the second round. I'm Cody Hammonds for the Game Plan.
MLB opening weekend is this week, and there has been a lot of speculation on who will potentially win the Cy Young Award in each conference. Who do you guys think is a top candidate for the Cy Young in each conference?
For me, I think that a lot of it falls on, for the AL, a lot of it falls on Garrett Cole. I mean, he's been absolutely great. He was great in Houston for the number of years that he was in there. And, you know, for a second season, I fully expect him to make a very big push for the Cy Young this year. And, you know, we can't sit here and talk about the Cy Young without mentioning our boy Shane Bieber. Because Shane Bieber is absolutely amazing at everything he does with his placement, with his velocity, you know, changing up speeds, all of it. He's just an absolute poster boy for pitching in Cleveland. And I'm so excited that he was mentioned at the beginning of the season whenever they were mentioning the odds. So I'm fully pulling for Shane Bieber in this one. And also in the same division, you have Gio for the Chicago White Sox, who I think has made a very big stride, especially last season. You know, and so I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that lines up, especially between Bieber and Gio, you know, in that division. And for the NL, I mean, Bauer won it last year, and I think he's going to make a very good push for it this year because he is on the Dodgers, and the Dodgers, you know, have a very good rotation. But I think a lock for it, and a lot of people have talked about the odds as well. Jacob deGrom is one of the best pitchers of our era, and I've loved watching him and, you know, making his progressions throughout his entire career. And I think that he has even better odds than Trevor Bauer to win it this year. So whenever we look at both the Cy Young races for this season, I think, you know, the biggest city that can make the most noise is definitely going to be New York between Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom.
I have to agree with you on Garrett Cole because I personally think the Yankees are not expecting, but they're waiting on a pitcher to win the Cy Young. It would be the first pitcher that's won the Cy Young for the Yankees since Roger Clemens in 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's who everyone is tipping their hats off to.
Yeah.
To win it for the American League. Now, obviously, you mentioned Shane Bieber. I'm going to mention Shane Bieber. Dude's a boss. I mean, he literally is the reason that if the Cleveland does anything this season, he's going to be the reason. They're going to be a pitching team this season because they're turning into a farmer's team. It's not that they haven't been a farmer's team. They had CC Sabathia. They got rid of him. They had, you know, Brandon Phillips. They got rid of him. More than just that. But we cannot sit here and talk about pitchers without mentioning Shane Bieber. I don't mean to rant about, you know, my Cleveland Indians. Now, on the other end, I'd have to agree that Trevor Bauer is going to be the man to be looking out for simply because he won it last season. He's going to be aiming to win it back-to-back, and the dude is a monster. And now that he's with the Dodgers, it would not surprise me in one bit of the word or the way that it happens because I don't know how it'll happen. It can. But the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series, and it's going to be these two pitchers against each other. It's going to be a World Series to remember.
I'm inclined to agree. I think from the AL side of things, it's a very tight race right now. You have three big names at the top. You have Garrett Cole, Shane Bieber, and Gio at the top. if you look at the odds of them winning it, it's extremely close. It's 350 to 400 to 450. That's about as tight as it can get. Three great talents. It's kind of interesting to me if you look at it from a preseason poll perspective. Shane Bieber was the poll winner for the preseason, and he was completely unanimous. And now he's currently in second place, losing to Garrett Cole in terms of odds. And then if you look at it from the NL perspective, you have Jacob deGrom, who is in quite a significant lead over Trevor Bauer, who's the previous Cy Young winner. But if you look at the preseason poll again, Trevor Bauer was designated to win it again, and he's about 300 or 400 odds behind Jacob deGrom. Regardless, I think the talents in both leagues are great. I think anybody at this point could take it. Trevor Bauer has won it before, so he knows what it takes to win it again. Jacob deGrom is a fantastic player. He's in such a lead right now that he may just be able to hold on to that lead and win it. And then if you hop back over to the AL, you have three people that have the potential to win it in a very tight race. Shane Bieber is the preseason, like I said, but I think I'm going to have to place my odds with Garrett Cole because I think that he's going to take what the lead he has so far, build on it, and finish strong. And he'll be the Cy Young winner for the AL. And then for the NL, I think it's just going to be Jacob deGrom. I think his lead is so significant that I really don't think Trevor Bauer can cut that lead down to a halt or down to a minimum to where he can overcome him and take it again.
Something that I wanted to mention was we talked a lot about Bauer, and Bauer provides such a good insight into how the game goes and how they progress and how they also prepare for a game. And he's done just such a very good job with showing everybody that's a fan how he prepares for games and what he does to improve on his abilities. With his YouTube channel, I've watched him ever since he was in Cleveland, and it's just so interesting to watch and just see how not only him but people like him as well. Whenever he was with the Reds, he did a lot of stuff with his fellow pitchers there too, like with Luis Castillo. So I just thought it was very, very cool that he's always done that and made a stride to show everybody who's a fan of the MLB that everything that it takes to be a pitcher in the MLB and to perform at such a high level.
And we've never really gotten that kind of insight from anywhere.
Yeah.
He kind of started that himself, and now look at his channel. It's got a huge cult following.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the coolest things to watch, especially if you're into the MLB and want to know about everything. You've shown me it multiple times.
Yeah.
You've shown me specific episodes where all kinds of stuff happens. So I agree with everything you're saying, and it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely going to be a fun one to watch, that's for sure.
All the talking about the great quarterback prospects of the NFL today really inspired me to show off my arm talent and put myself out there for all the NFL scouts. Check out the results.
Howdy. This is Jacob Hedges from the GamePlan. I got my director, Matt Wilson, to my right, and we've got a returning face, Braxton Miller, to my left. Now, I'm sure you guys have been wondering where he's been at. And well, I've got some very interesting news. He's been trying out for the Icelandic football team, and we're going to be out here helping him with his routine today. I've got my arm on me. Let's get it.
How's this experience been for you in the long run?
It's been a great experience. Been training real hard up in Iceland, and it's been real cold. So I'm kind of sweating out here today because it's a little hot. Not gonna lie. But we're out here putting in the work, ready to go pro, baby. Let's get it.
Yo, Braxton, get over here, dog. You're trying out for the Icelandic football team. Those running routes were trash. They were just awful. I'm sorry to tell you that, but I'm your friend. We're hosts of the game show together. So I think the best way we can do this is let me run the routes and you throw to me and you watch how I do it. James, get over here. You're gonna guard me so Braxton can get the full scope of what he'll be doing for the Icelandic Football League.
All right, sounds good.
So Jacob, how do you feel on your first route?
Terrible service. I mean, I was throwing dimes out there for Braxton. On the, maybe that's why he's trying out for wide receiver. But
Up.
Let's go.
Honestly, I don't even know what the hell we're doing out here.
Since the All-Star break, things have heated up with teams making their case for who's the best team in the NBA. Who are your guys' picks to win the NBA Finals?
Well, I really think this year is a no-brainer for the Nets and Lakers. I mean, the Nets keep adding piece after piece with LaMarcus Aldridge, DeAndre Jordan. I know he came in last year, but matching him with Blake Griffin, Lob City. I know they're not the same guys that they used to be, but they have the potential to make something amazing happen with their lobs. And with James Harden, he's a great passer. Kyrie Irving's a great passer. And Kevin Durant, he might not flashy pass, but he still averages his 5 assists a game. He does what he needs to do. They score the ball better than any team I've ever watched play basketball. It's ridiculous. But on the other side, the Lakers, this is their championship to lose. I don't see them actually being able to beat this team, this super team. On paper, I think this could be the best team ever. Maybe not playing like it, but their names just pop out as even better than the 2017-2018 Warriors. And I just think simply the Lakers don't have enough. I know they added Andre Drummond, and he's going to be a great rebounder, but I don't think his defense is all the way there. And I don't think they can score at a high enough rate to outscore this Nets team.
I completely agree with you, Brian. For the Nets, I'm with you. I don't think we've ever seen a team like the Nets, especially with how much star power they have, with Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin. There's so many that, you have to go through and name, and there's just not enough hands to do it, And not to mention that they still have Joe Harris as well, who is absolutely, unconscious from the three-point range. And so I just don't see a team out there that could beat the Nets. There's only one team that could come close, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's the Los Angeles Lakers. But at the end of the day, I think that the Nets just have so much firepower on that team that it's just going to be too overbearing and overwhelming for, even, LeBron James to handle. And I think a lot of it has shifted between, how can we build a team to stop LeBron James? Because at the end of the day, this man's getting to the finals every year. You need to figure out some way or form to stop him. And, to put it this way, I think that what the Nets are doing, don't get me wrong, what they're doing is for the best in the business. They're doing what's best for them. But at the end of the day, I don't know, it's going to be a fun team to watch, but it's just not going to be competitive, because who's going to come out of the East. It's going to be the Nets. And, I still think there's a lot of chances for other teams in the West to come out instead of the Lakers. You still have the Clippers in the conversation with them as well, and then the Nuggets with them, adding Aaron Gordon. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the Nets, and it's going to be by a very, very wide margin.
I'm inclined to agree. I think at this point in the season, we've seen, what each team's capable of, how they are at their best, how they are at their worst. We're a little over midway through the season, and I mean, the Nets just have too much of an all-star lineup. Like Matt and Brian said, they just have too much firepower. The only thing I believe that could truly keep the Nets from winning it all would be injuries. And injuries is quite a possible conversation this year. There are plenty of injuries on the board right now. Kevin Durant's injured. Blake Griffin was injured. LeBron is injured. Anthony Davis is injured. LaMarcus Aldridge is injured. I mean, there's so many different all-star players that are injured right now. The list goes on and on. As far as the conversation comes, who's getting out of the East and the West, the Nets are absolutely getting out of the East. They're the second seed right now overall. They'll definitely make it out. Hopefully they don't get plagued with injuries. I don't wish that upon anybody. But that would be the only reason that the Nets don't win this season. I mean, they just have too much of an all-star lineup to compete with, even for, the likes of LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Andre Drummond and all them. As far as the West goes, you have the teams at the top that are really good regular season teams like the Utah Jazz, but they don't quite have the closing power that they need. They don't quite have that postseason experience. So I believe the Lakers will come out. But my sleeper team, I think that the Miami Heat. Last year we saw them in the finals versus the Lakers. They did fairly well in the finals for being such a young team, with the only person that had postseason experience was Jimmy Butler. But now they've added a couple more people to their roster, a couple more shooters, another rebounder. I think that they're the sleeper team. They could do something big. They could not. It kind of just depends on how they get matched up. If they get matched up against the Nets or not until it gets to the finals or until the conference finals. But at this point in the season, I think the same thing's on everyone's mind. It's going to be the Lakers and the Nets. And if it's not, then it'll be one of the biggest upsets you've ever seen.
I'd like to add something really quick. We haven't talked about the Suns enough. The Suns are playing incredible this year. Man, I'm really excited to see Devin Booker finally in the playoffs. He's been played with bad teams ever since he came into the league. And I'm just ready to see him actually take over and give him a chance to prove himself. Because he's had slander on his name year after year. He's been scoring the ball at such a high level, but he's not really had that chance. And now that they've added an all-star guard in Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton is finally playing at a better level than he has been these past couple of years, I think they could really make some noise, and they're going to end up as a 1 or 2 seed the way they're playing right now. Maybe playing the Warriors if they get a chance, because Steph Curry's got to come back. But I think they're close to playing like the Trailblazers or the let's just say the Trailblazers. If they play a team like that, I think they can win, but they're not making it out of the second round because the Clippers team is also very good. And if Paul George doesn't play like he does playoff P, then I think they even have a chance to take the Lakers to a 7-game series, and I'm not counting them out at all. But LeBron James does not lose in 7.
Yeah, well, I mean, to go on about sleeper teams, Cody, I really like your pick. I mean, adding Victor Oladipo to that already deep team is just going to be absolutely amazing. You know, whenever you have Victor Oladipo starting, and then you have someone who made a very big impact in Tyler Hero coming off the bench, you know, to give you that extra edge on scoring, it's going to be amazing to see. I mean, in any other normal situation where, you know, the Nets didn't exist and, you know, they didn't have the firepower that they do now, you know, that's a very good team, and that's a very difficult team to beat, you know, because they just have so many ranges of scoring that, you know, they could go through, like Tyler Hero, like Duncan Robinson, and now, you know, Victor Oladipo, you know, mixing in with Jimmy Butler. And now, you know, you have Bam as well. So I really like that sleeper team. And also what you said about the Suns, I'm so happy that Devin Booker finally has help, you know, because he's been doing it by himself for as long as he's been in the NBA. But now that he finally has, you know, an all-star guard, like you said with Paul, to finally help him, you know, with scoring abilities, and not only that, but to feed him the ball, you know, give him the best positions to score. And now DeAndre Ayton's playing like a #1 pick. You know, they're just going to be really good, and it's finally going to be, you know, good to see them, like you said, in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, you know, but like we said, at the end of the day, it's going to be the Nets. Thank you for joining us here on The Game Plan. I'm Matt Wilson alongside Jacob Hedges and Cody Hammonds. We'll see you next time.